Welcome to the Asking Why podcast. I'm your host, Clint Davis, and today we have Miss Miranda Boothe. Yeah. New name in tow.
Yes, yeah.
I'm glad to have you.
So excited to be here with my new name.
That's right, with your new name. Shout out to your husband.
Yes.
He gave you that name.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad to have you. Miranda, for those that don't know, Miranda's a new therapist with our practice, and she's also a music therapist. So tell everybody kind of your credentials, what you do, who you are.
So I just completed my board certification in February, and it's for Music Therapist Board Certified. That's what you would see, MTBC. And so what that entails is just kind of going to school, doing classes for music therapy, going to a 6-month internship, working with people, using music as a tool for whatever it is that they need. Here is with mental health, but I've worked in rehab situations and development situations, kids, adults, developmental delays, ASD, all of those things. Anything that music can engage someone in and help them move from point A to point B in growth. Yeah. That's what we do.
Okay, so take us back, Miranda. What was childhood like with music? What kind of molded you and shaped you into this kind of person that you are today?
Everybody's mom is very proud of them. And mine was not any different. That's generalization, but I'm thankful for my mom. She noticed very quickly that I was a singer, that I could do that. And so anytime she got a chance to, she'd put me on stage. And I'm thankful for her for that, because I ended up going to get my first degree in singing. Mm-hmm. But throughout my whole life, I was in church, and church is always just a good place to do that. Church people are always very kind, and they just love to see people doing stuff. And I guess I was all right at it. So
you're the little girl doing the plays and singing the worship songs, and
yeah,
gotcha.
That was me.
All right. And so that music kind of you were raised up in kind of church singing, worshiping. Mm-hmm. And so when you graduated high school, you went to where for vocal stuff?
The University of Louisiana at Monroe.
Okay.
And I was there doing my voice primary.
And so what were you wanting to be with that?
So at the time, I went in to do music ed.
Okay.
ULM didn't have music therapy yet. I'd known what it was, but I didn't know. I always had this feeling that I wasn't skilled enough to do it. And the only school at the time in Louisiana was a private school, so okay. I went to a public school. And music ed was good because it was kind of the same realm. It was taking music to people. I liked being on stage, but I didn't love singing in front of people, and so performance or anything like that, or you're just pushing music, really wasn't in my zone. So it felt good to be able to bring music to people in an education way.
What do you mean pushing music?
Well, I guess pushing music, being a performer, okay. Or having it be the thing that you do, or even someone who is in music business, who just wants that is their thing, is to make music available to people to listen to.
Okay.
But for some reason, I just felt a need to do that more as far as bringing up the next group of performers or something like that, right?
So it wasn't really a niche for you to be I want to songwrite, I want to produce songs and music and albums.
Not really. It was in the back of my head, and who knows what my future might hold. It's definitely kind of a passion. Every little girl wants to be a rock star. I said another generalization, but I was one of those little girls who wanted to be a rock star.
Yeah.
But you settle into life and find that you have strengths,
okay,
like we were talking about, and some of my strengths were sitting and listening to people and learning about what they need, and so doing that through the education avenue for a little bit, and then eventually I was no, again, music therapy was in the back of my mind. I kind of knew what it was, but I didn't know enough, and so when I finally learned what it was and how I could do it, I was gung-ho. I was all the way in. I was this is what, this fits my personality, having smaller groups. This fits my strengths, being able to talk to people and get to know people, and then adapting my music experiences to whoever is in front of me, for them to benefit. And so all of those things kind of came into play from just kind of, it seems like a nice little present right now, but it wasn't always that way, right? Because music is something that, it's very perfectionist, in a way, right? Like you have to go in, you have to be really strong in certain things. You have to know your lines, you have to know your notes, you have to know everything that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
And
Unless you're playing jazz, right?
Unless you're playing jazz, and then it's like another level.
Right.
It's like,
it's actually, to be able to be that random, you actually have to be really good.
You have to really know. Yeah. And actually,
that is an interesting point. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
not that we don't all have things that are that precise, but music is very precise. My kids play piano, violin,
That's
guitar,
awesome.
drums. So, and they're incredible. And my oldest is really either got perfect pitch or whatever the second
awesome.
underneath it is.
Yeah, relative.
Yeah, relative. And it's crazy. He can pick up stuff and just start playing it and figure it out, which I have no musical talent whatsoever. I mean, I like to sing. I'm not saying I'm a good singer. I like to sing, but I can't play anything, nor do I understand anything about music. I have a guitar that I'm supposed to start learning to play. Maybe you can teach me. Anyway, my point is that, but yeah, one of the things that's hard, like with violin, they've been playing since they were 4. Yeah, it's very precise. It's difficult.
Especially violin.
They're learning by ear.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. It is such an interesting, which I would assume leads to a very competitive, perfectionistic,
Yes. And which
culture.
in hindsight with counseling and therapy is great, because I can kind of pick up on things for people, and I feel like it makes me a better therapist. But growing up, and growing up in trying to be a professional musician, you're always at the next step. Like your primary instructor is kind of like brushing over the first 5 minutes of your lesson, saying, good job. Like you're getting like 5 minutes of good job, and the whole rest of the lesson is do more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. In that it strengthens you as a person, and it strengthens you, well, me, not everybody wants to be a musician, but it strengthened me as a person, and it helped me in the pursuit of something a little bit more challenging, which was therapy and doing the psychotherapy and stuff.
Yeah. So you mentioned kind of fluttered by it, but you kind of had that knack for seeing what people need and listening to people. How did that play in with music? Like, is that something that you feel like was a family systems thing, or is that just a gifting that God put inside of you? Like, when did you kind of looking back and go, man, I was always kind of a listener or a hearer or a seer?
I don't know. It may have been a family systems thing. I'm an oldest child.
There we go.
Okay, is that it?
I mean, maybe.
I'm the oldest.
Not necessarily. I mean, there's younger kids who pick up on it for other reasons.
That's true. Yeah. And it's kind of fun being the oldest. You kind of grow up with your parents a little bit, just a little bit. They raised me, but it's fun to see how they taught me and how they taught my siblings. But yeah, I think partly that and partly just.
I mean, you're naturally just a very warm person. That's another thing. Like, you just have like a really warm personality. You're very open. You're very easy to talk to. So I do think that just your temperament, leads towards being a counselor, being a therapist. That. Yeah, absolutely.
I think I get that from my dad, honestly. But my parents are also very polar personalities. So it was fun to watch them interact with each other and then kind of tilt my head and then learn from them. I've always just been observant with that.
So you were in church, but kind of how did Christ shape maybe music? How has that gotten to be something that is integrated into kind of who you are?
It kind of was just my only means. It was the only thing that I felt strong in, which, in hindsight and thinking back for conversations that I've had with my dad and things, I had a lot of strengths, but at the time, like, I knew like music was something that I enjoyed. I had a special connection with faith and theology and apologetics and things, and a strong belief in that it helps people.
Yeah, is that something your parents kind of passed down, the apologetics and stuff, or is that something that you picked up on your own?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
My dad loved talking about it with me, so he definitely encouraged it. But like, I guess, as a young youth, I was kind of interested in it. I don't even know where it started. I just think I intellectualize a lot of things, and so. I intellectualize the Bible. In the same breath, I have a strong belief in the fact that like faith is very driving in your response to like how you feel when you're interacting with Scripture. But yeah, it's a weird middle ground. Again, my parents were very polar. My mom's very creative. My dad is very, he's a engineer.
Very logical, black and white.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I got a nice balance of all of that, which I feel like is very helpful for the music side of it all.
Yeah, that's
right?
good.
Like, because that precision, along with being able to
be creative.
Yeah, I have to.
Yeah,
you know,
that's cool.
And my creativity really was pushed in having to use music therapy for different things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're when you're talking to someone about anxiety, it's much different than when you're having to help someone who has dexterity problems due to a traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
You could be doing the exact same activity, playing a guitar, playing a ukulele, but the way that I instruct them is very different. And I enjoy the fact that I have that precision and that care, particularly from my parents, I think. And then, of course, you know, faith in God, you know, they prayed for me my whole life and all of that. But to strengthen that in me so that I can use music therapy in a strategic way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of get through high school. You just kind of have this good base of health. Sounds like pretty healthy, reasonable parents who are guiding you and shepherding you and discipling you. Which, by the way, is like a unicorn. You realize. And so you get into college. You go to the vocal thing, and so what shifted you to going? Oh, I kind of want to do this from the mental health perspective.
Christian counseling's kind of been in the forefront too, and I like the idea of supporting mental wellness. I think it's just as important as physical wellness. And I guess I completely skipped over the fact that I did take piano lessons as a child. So that actually influenced me a lot musically. But anyway, back to...
kind of why you integrated towards therapy and counseling.
Thank you.
Yep.
I don't know. It again, I feel like is it tied into what God has planned for his people. I think it ties into faith and you know, discipleship and things like that, stuff that in apologetics and theology that I really love to learn about.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, you're steeped in reading the Bible and looking at what Christ did with the disciples and looking at the early church and you know, when you kind of meditate on that a lot and live in that, then it's hard to miss the relational aspect of Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people, their parents go to church and they may be around church or they're not at all. But it becomes a thing you go and you do, but not a thing that's lived, not a thing that's embodied. And, you know, you've heard me talk about this before, but like our faith as Christians is an embodiment. It's living out. It's following Jesus. It's not just intellectually understanding him or reading some lines of scripture and then modifying our behavior. It's, you know, being transformed into Christ. And so your parents were doing that for you in a way that like very few people get. I hope that that's my kid's story, right? Is that they grow up and they're sitting somewhere talking about their faith and they go, oh, this is just kind of what happened. It's just how my dad lived his life. It's how my mom lived her life. And yeah, they weren't perfect, but I learned how to follow this. And so what a beautiful testimony of, right? You have there's two testimonies. There's, I didn't know anything about Christ and I almost wrecked my life and he rescued me and redeemed me. And he's good. Or there's, oh, my parents were disciplined and obedient and I saw their faith and so I followed in that. And I had some hardship, but I didn't have as much hardship because of their faith. And so God is good for that, right? Like neither one are better, but we all have a different version. We were talking about before, like mine's over here. You know, like I saw my parents go to church and I saw my mom, you know, be obedient. And she worked for Louisiana Baptist Convention and she was at church. But then there was a lot of pain and mixed stuff all in there that made it more confusing. Yeah. And to me, it's like almost worse to have this narrative and then it not lived out well versus just chaos.
And sometimes on the outside, I feel like people thought my family was a little insane in some ways. And they weren't. They didn't believe that for real. But, you know, because it was a little abnormal.
You mean being counterculture?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, people think you're crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and Jesus is saying, live in a way
Yeah.
Right? That is not what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
I mean, the Sermon on the Mount is an indictment on everybody. Mm-hmm. Right? On everybody.
Yeah.
And
true.
saying, here's how you're to live if you're a part of this kingdom. And it is upside down from everything. And that was 3,000 years ago.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Now that same truth is applied, but now standing out and, you know, then doing things differently, maybe living a slower life, not looking for financial gain, not having your kids in every sport every weekend.
Right.
That's crazy to people.
Yeah.
And people will literally say, oh, you're not doing your kids a service, or they need to have this, or they need to do this, and they need to build their education, and they need, you know, they need to be taking classes in their junior year so they can graduate and get a 4.7. Mm-hmm. And again, not hating on people who choose to do those things, but if you don't do those things, you're kind of
you seem off.
Yeah. Or if you don't let your kid have an iPad,
yeah,
you know, or you don't let your kid just go to sleepovers, or you don't let your kid do what the normative cultural thing is, then people, they either feel slighted because they do, mm-hmm. or they feel like you're judging them because you don't.
Yeah.
Or they feel some insecurity that maybe they want to do that, but they're not confident enough to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and then you become the target.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I, you know, in hindsight, we didn't know why, but we were looked at funny probably. Mm-hmm. And now, again, very thankful.
Yeah.
And even, you know.
Then were you thankful? Like,
no.
Okay. There we go.
Absolutely not.
Great. I was glad that was your answer. Because my stance always with parenting conferences is I tell people, like, keep investing in your kids and doing the right thing, and they will thank you later. They may not thank you now. So I'm really glad that you validated that.
Oh, yeah, it's true. It's true. I remember, again, loved, all of this is all happening at the same time, right? Loved sitting at my dad's feet and just talking to him about stuff, about people, about their perspective, about why God supports this or not, or why the Bible supports this or not, and what we should do. And it was always like, even if he didn't truly act this out because he hadn't fully believed it yet, he always gave the answer of, you should love them anyway. Mm-hmm. And so it was interesting to know that he was always developing that for himself too, because there were a lot of times I saw his actions, not just words.
Sure.
And we're all like that. And it was infuriating, but his words were still true, and that, and even, you know, in recent days, he's proven that those words would follow through mm-hmm. for him.
Yeah. He matured.
Yeah, exactly. And so as he matured, I mature. And again, I don't always feel mature. There are some things that, like, I might say something about, you know, my family, the way I was raised, that I disagree with, mm-hmm. right? Like, even as, you know, unique unicorn as it sounds, like, there were some things that just, like, weren't perfect.
Sure.
And it's just because I was raised by human parents.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, like, the good outweighs the bad. The intention, in a way, outweighed the actions. And then also my own faith, being able to kind of decipher through that. And then, you know, I have a sister, and we talk and we decipher things together, and that's always fun.
Well, thank God that, you know, his promises aren't predicated on our perfection.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
no, so true.
God has promised to take care of you and make good out of bad and go before you and with you and shape you. And if you're obedient, that he mm-hmm. blesses you, and, you know, all these things. And it's like, that's true.
Yeah.
Even though, and that's hope for all parents listening to this, right? Like, you don't have to be a perfect parent for your mm-hmm. kids to be successful. That's going to be up to them and God.
Yep.
Right. That's no matter what. Like, you definitely don't want to be over here crushing your kid's spirit and being unhealthy and toxic and making it harder.
Right.
But even if you get closer to the perfect line, your kid's still going to have issues, and still going to have to work their faith out with fear and trembling, and still going to have to go to God with their insecurities. Yep. And still going to have to suffer and see God in the suffering. And
there was definitely a window of that in my life where, you know, my dad is an engineer. I am a musician. That did not
always gel.
No, and he loves music. We would talk about it all the time because it was a hobby of his to listen to music, but he didn't think it could go any farther than that. And so that, again, a supportive person of me, and he supported me and loved me. But yeah, I mean.
But also gave you some pushback.
Yeah, and I had to fight that. And again, that was me and God. That was me following what I felt like God wanted me to do by, you know, being great at what I was good at. I remember very early a scripture, play skillfully for the Lord, as in Psalms, I think. And I think Daniel, sorry.
One of those two.
Yeah.
One of the D's.
One of those guys. Anyway, play the harp and something, playing skillfully for the Lord. And that's really what stuck out to me as far as like going to music school, right? Because being a worship leader is different than being, I mean, you can still go to music school and be a worship leader, right? But like,
Sure.
that wasn't my aim. I thought it was. I would have loved to do that, but my path didn't come out that way. And my gifts didn't add to that or didn't contribute to that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good. That's great. It's my job to keep us on track. So you have this set up. You decide, okay, I want to kind of help people. I mean, looking at your story and your parents and the development, it makes sense that those things would kind of come together in a ministry, kind of nurturing, loving, compassionate way, and that you would go, hey, I don't want to just do talk therapy. Music's very helpful. So kind of paint us a picture of why, because most people don't understand this. I mean, people like music, but maybe neurologically, but also just why is music helpful for people in treating pain?
There's a lot of reasons.
Sure.
And
Give me some of them.
And well, and there's like a whole avenue of neurologic music therapy that tells you like what the brain is doing and what the chemicals in the brain are doing and all of that. And that's really cool. I'm not an expert in that. But as far as like pain, initially, like step one, it can be distracting. Like it can distract you from pain in that it reduces the perception of pain. So like if you were to like actually measure pain, which we can't do, but if that level of pain could still be there, like objectively, but the music can help the individual not perceive it as much.
Yeah. That's why people like to listen to music and work out and like to listen to music and run. And, you know, it distracts you. It keeps you motivated.
Yep. And the evidence proves that with a music therapist, you have that live musical element to adapt the music to what is needed at the time. So sometimes pain can be, can increase anxiety. Sometimes it can kind of just be exhausting and you're a little bit in lower affect. And so having a live music therapist there for you to help you work on that for physical pain can help bring you from one way to the other through tempo and volume and structure of music. And so, for example, if you were high anxiety and high pain, I would play a favorite song of yours because we also use preferred music. And so I would learn that song for you, or hopefully I already know it. And
Bop.
Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah, Bop. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
No, I mean.
The lyrics are actually really good.
Is it? I only know that lyric, actually. Oh, okay. That's the whole thing, isn't it? Okay. Yeah. I mean, look. So what I would do with that song actually is start it at that tempo, and it might turn into this like soulful. I'm being a little funny about it, but it'll slowing down the tempo. Sure. Doing that bop, right? If that's what it has to be, that's what it has to be, right? And hopefully bringing you from a place of anxiety and pain into like a more regulated state.
That's good.
And then sometimes pain medication works better. Sometimes if you're also dealing with depression or anxiety, those medications work better. And so, yeah, that's a primary way structurally that music therapists can help with pain. We also...
And I didn't mean just physical pain. I just meant like the emotional aspect of, you know, I'm suffering and I'm struggling. And so therefore, you know, I want to do music therapy versus talking about it. You know, although I'm sure you're talking about it.
Yeah. Music too can help express things in a way that you might not be able to before. It's interesting because we listen to songs for lyrics, right? Sometimes. And sometimes those lyrics can help you process through certain things. Sometimes these lyricists, these songwriters, have written a similar experience out in a song, and you just take some of their lyrics and put words to your feelings. Yeah. So that's how a typical person would do it.
That's cool.
And talk to me about it. And of course, I help you walk through that.
So let's do Bop real quick, because you said you never heard the lyrics.
Okay, yeah.
So listen, I mean, this is the, it's a Silly Hansen song with these three kids who are super young and cute and really popular. But these are the lyrics. You have so many relationships in this life, only one or two will last. You go through all the pain and strife, then you turn your back and they're gone so fast.
Yeah.
Oh, so hold on to the ones that really care. In the end, they'll be the only ones there. When you get old and start losing your hair, can you tell me who still cares? Can you tell me who still cares?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't know that was in that song.
Yeah. The lyrics are ridiculously good.
Yeah.
But, people just sing them as this funny thing. And it's like this really heavy melody. And you got these three, long-haired kids who are playing the music. And
that's awesome.
Who don't know a thing about struggling in life yet.
Right.
And yet.
Yeah. Well, and then that's what makes the music good, right? Is the other, and that's the depth of music is really cool too, because sometimes we'll just watch a video, right? And that therapist connection, that client therapist connection happens of just like watching the music video and saying, yeah, I like that guy's hair, whatever.
Sure.
And then developing a conversation that way.
That's great.
But then sometimes we get the lyrics out and it gets even deeper. And the same thing that helped us connect on a surface level will now help us connect on a deeper level. And we can talk about who is important to them. Like if you're dealing with addiction, how can we identify someone who's important to you? Probably is not the person who, or the people who are within that addiction with you, right? It's probably people outside of that, and kind of helping to determine and what those characteristics are. That's using awesome. A song that we connected with. And so I think the longevity of the connection, the therapeutic connection is really important there with music, but also as far as like, this is my favorite thing that music therapy does, is that it can connect people who don't have the language to connect.
So good.
And for whatever reason, I love working with veterans. It's one of my favorites. And a lot of times that is one way where we see that they kind of just like stuff all their feelings down and all of that. And like lots of people do this, but that's where I see it the most, or have seen it. And so the lyrics can kind of help say, oh yeah, I feel that way. Or even just the music. Oh, I was able to like free myself of something because of this musical experience. And because of a live music therapist. And if you think about it, if you've ever gone to a concert, like that's a different experience than sitting in your car.
Oh yeah.
Right.
If you go to a concert and see a band that's half decent, they become your favorite band of all time.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's something about live. I mean, again, it's supported in the literature, but we kind of, generally speaking, all know that, right? That live music is more beneficial.
Well, I think it's so easy to, because everything we do if we integrate a little bit, everything we do is worship. Whether we're worshiping God or we're worshiping the world. Yeah. And music's incredible, to tap us into memory, to tap us into smell and sight and things. I mean, all of us have albums that when we turn on bring us right to, 14 or bring us right to 16 driving our car for the first time, or bring us right to our parents walking in after work, or, whatever the thing is. These things are so intricately tied in, and those can be really good things, or they can be really, really ugly things. Yeah. And if we're in pain, there's actually probably like 2 weeks ago, I don't remember what was happening, but I was not in a great spot mentally, and I was going to sleep. I couldn't sleep. And normally I have no trouble with sleeping. I'm a great sleeper. But for some reason, I think I'd like worked out or drank coffee and I couldn't sleep, and my mind was kind of stirring. And I put on I went to the Apple Music and I typed in, it was like 97 popular songs, like 1997. Oh. And then I just started listening to these and that was probably, junior high, into junior high. And man, I haven't listened to half of those songs in years, but it was just so interesting.
They immediately boost your mood.
Oh, they boosted my mood, and also brought me back to this time of just things were easy and simple, but it also it's also why would my parents let me listen to these lyrics at 12 or whatever I was, so that, it's always funny to kind of get that perspective and look at it.
Yeah. Well, and oddly enough, we're taught to use preferred music, but we're also taught to use music from a certain age range.
Oh, that's good.
And that's it. That's the age range. And
didn't
especially
even know.
Yeah. Well, but you kind of proved why, right? It brought you back, to some of those memories, that an easier time. And especially with people with dementia. They really can't tell you what they like listening to. You can kind of infer or draw conclusions, but you know, you look at their birth date and you say, okay, they're in this time, they were listening to this music, it was probably a decent time in their life. Well,
right.
And they'll sing. You know, these people with dementia will sing. People who forgot their kids' names, forgot their spouses' names, can recall all of these lyrics from that time of their life. So again, another language thing where like music can bring about some level of socialization that's
awesome.
They wouldn't have otherwise.
That's super cool.
So yeah, I love it. In addition to people who have like language delays, speech problems, and you know, because those people can't express things to you doesn't mean they don't have feelings.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting when I've worked with adults with disabilities how they emote, and they've just never been given a chance to. And so I just think for the least of these, I guess.
That's beautiful. I
know?
love it. Yeah, I'm so excited about you being here. I'm so excited about that opportunity for our community. I mean, it's part of why I want to do the podcast is just to get that out to people. For people who don't know, where are you at? You know, I know where you're at, but, you know, where are you at location-wise? And then how can people get in touch with you? And then, you know, who is your best client? Like, who's somebody listening to this where you're like, you know, I want to help you?
Yeah, so my office is next to Knoll Methodist Church, the little art house there.
It used to be Samaritan Counseling Center.
Yes.
Yep, and now it is, what's it called?
The Knoll Art House.
Knoll Art House.
Yeah, so they do community art program things there,
really
which
cool.
Is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Really cool story. You know this, but I'm going to tell our audience. So Ross Githens, who works with me in my practice, and I used to work at Samaritan Counseling Center, I don't know, 15 years ago now. And so Samaritan was a nonprofit counseling center that we started out in. Well, we left there. I started Clint Davis Counseling, and then Ross called me a couple years later and was like, hey, can I make a change, a jump to you? I said, come on, man. So he brought his practice over. And then, you know, over the last 8 years, we've just grown and brought you on. And so when we were looking for locations, we knew you couldn't be in our office because it's going to be loud and there's going to be music. And we were looking for places, and you found, you know, this place at Knoll, and we made some connections. And I thought it was in Knoll Church.
Yeah.
You know, like I thought they just had an office because I knew they had like a music studio. So that when you called to meet me and you were like, hey, it's over here, I pull up and it's Samaritan Counseling Center, which has closed down now. And so we went upstairs, and there were like two options for rooms, and it was my old room or Ross's old room. And just the full circleness of that and God and how cool that is, that a place that we started doing counseling that is, you know, closed, we're now revitalizing, you know, as a practice together to do this great work. And I think that's just so beautiful.
The music literally moves through the house.
That's awesome.
It's
a great house for it.
Yeah. It's nice to be there. So yeah, and you can reach out, you know, to Clint Davis Counseling, call and schedule. But I guess an ideal client would just be someone who, you don't have to be a musician. I'll start there. You don't have to be a musician. You don't have to know a single thing about music. That's 100% my job. My job is to make a positive music experience for you.
That's good.
So if you need literally anything, if you need a mood boost in your week, if you need a stress relief in your week, if you have a child who doesn't seem to be connecting socially with their peers or with their family, if you have someone, or if you are someone who has developed some level of depression and just can't find where it is and can't verbalize what's going on, you could start here in music therapy. You could start with just telling me your favorite songs, talking about them, what's going on in your life, learning an instrument. And another thing that I love about music therapy is learning an instrument can be such a wonderful thing to relearn how to develop skills. As adults, we forget that it's hard to do new things. Yep. And we actually do a lot of new things all the time, but we don't want to admit it because we're not children anymore. So if you wanted to practice those skills, or practice, you know, your internal dialogue of more positive thoughts about yourself or positive thoughts about how you do things, we can do that together through learning an instrument. I teach guitar, piano. I'll try a few other things. Bass. I've taught bass. And it's just, yeah. So all of those things. And then, yeah, if you just feel a connection, feel like you need to develop a connection with a therapist but are scared to do so, I believe music therapy is a good place to start, because you're not connecting with me first.
Yeah.
You're connecting with the music first.
That's good.
And I'll be there when you're ready.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say to add on to that, if you are a music person,
Yeah.
and that's something that you're really connected to, what an easier segue,
Yes.
to come in. So it's like it works for all. So
Yes.
that's a great clarification. That's what that's what I wanted to hear. Okay, cool. Any closing thoughts, comments?
Just I can't wait to see some people do music therapy.
That's
with
right.
me.
Y'all give her a call. We'll post this, and if you're in town, I'd love to see more people come and see you, and you're doing great so far. And I think God is opening the door for connections with Brentwood and doing some group therapy and getting clients. So we'll just continue to pray and know that God's going to give us the people that he needs. So thank you for your hard work. Thank you for being obedient to what God's calling you to. Thank you for risking coming and working with me and doing this with me and figuring this out together, and kind of charting this course that nobody's doing in town. So
It's been great so far, so I'm happy to be here.
awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening. God bless you and have a good week.